Imagine this, you're in a foreign country surrounded by people who don't speak your language, yet somehow communication still happens. Someone smiles at you, someone waves, someone nods their head, and instantly you're exchanging messages without a single word being spoken. This is the power of body language, but here's the twist. What you see and what they mean aren't always the same. Body language varies significantly around the world, and what's perfectly normal in one culture could be entirely misunderstood in another. Understanding these differences isn't just fascinating. It's essential if you want to build meaningful connections wherever you go. Let's start with one of the most common gestures, the handshake. In Western cultures like the United States, a firm handshake is a sign of confidence and professionalism. But if you were in Japan, you might not even need a handshake. Instead, a bow, varying in depth and length depending on the level of respect, would take its place. In the Middle East, a handshake is often gentler and might last longer, while in some African cultures the handshake might include extra steps like snapping your fingers. Imagine walking into a room and offering a handshake that aligns perfectly with cultural expectations. That single gesture could set the tone for the entire interaction. Now think about personal space, something you rarely notice until it feels wrong. In countries like the United States or Canada, maintaining a bit of distance during a conversation is the norm. But in countries like Brazil or Italy, standing close is a sign of warmth and friendliness. On the other hand, in countries like Japan or Finland, people prefer more personal space, and standing too close might make them feel uncomfortable. Imagine stepping forward or stepping back just the right amount to show respect and understanding. That subtle adjustment could make all the difference. Eye contact is another universal yet highly culture-specific form of communication. In Western cultures, making eye contact is often seen as a sign of honesty and engagement, but in Asian cultures, particularly in places like China or Japan, direct eye contact can feel invasive or disrespectful, especially when speaking with someone in a position of authority. In contrast, in the Middle East, maintaining steady eye contact can show sincerity and strength. Imagine how powerful it is to adjust your gaze in a way that resonates with the person in front of you, showing them you understand their unspoken rules of communication. Let's move to gestures, something we use every day without much thought. A thumbs up in the United States means good job or everything is okay, but in countries like Iran or Greece, it's an offensive gesture. Similarly, the OK sign, made by forming a circle with your thumb and index finger, means just that in many Western cultures, but in places like Brazil or Turkey it can be interpreted as a rude insult. Even waving hello or goodbye isn't universal. In Greece, waving with your palm facing out is seen as offensive, while in countries like Japan, a small wave close to your body is the norm. Imagine how easily misunderstandings could be avoided by knowing these differences. Now let's explore facial expressions. You might think a smile is universal, but it's not. In many Western cultures, smiling is a friendly, approachable gesture, but in countries like Russia, people may reserve their smiles for genuine moments of happiness or humor, and smiling at strangers might come across as insincere. In Japan, a smile can sometimes mask discomfort or embarrassment rather than joy. Imagine how differently people might perceive you just by the way you smile. Knowing when and how to smile could open or close doors in ways you've never considered. Posture also speaks volumes. In the United States or much of Europe, standing tall and maintaining good posture signals confidence. But in other cultures, such as in Thailand or India, bowing slightly or maintaining a more reserved stance can show humility and respect. Even sitting can vary in meaning. Crossing your legs at the knee is casual in Western cultures, but in some Middle Eastern or Asian cultures, it might be considered disrespectful, especially if the sole of your foot is visible. Imagine sitting down in a meeting or gathering and immediately earning respect just by your posture. Touch is another deeply cultural form of communication. In Mediterranean and Latin American countries, people are often more tactile. A handshake might be accompanied by a pat on the back, a hug, or even a kiss on the cheek. In contrast, in countries like Japan or the United Kingdom, physical touch is less common and might be reserved for close relationships or formal greetings. Imagine offering a handshake when a hug is expected, or vice versa, and how that might shape someone's impression of you. Even silence has cultural significance. In Japan or Finland, silence during a conversation isn't awkward, it's respectful. It's a moment to process thoughts or simply to be present. But in countries like the United States or Italy, silence might feel uncomfortable, something to be filled quickly with words. Imagine how powerful it is to embrace silence when it's appropriate, showing someone that you understand their cultural rhythm. Finally, think about your clothing. The way you dress isn't just about style, It's also a form of body language. In the Middle East, dressing modestly is a sign of respect for cultural and religious traditions. In Western cultures, business attire signals professionalism and competence. While casual wear can indicate approachability, imagine walking into a room and instantly being seen as someone who respects the culture simply by your choice of clothing. Body language is like a silent symphony, each gesture, movement, and expression playing its part. But the tune changes depending on where you are in the world. Imagine how empowering it is to not only recognize these variations but to use them to connect with people on a deeper level. By understanding how body language varies around the world, you're not just avoiding misunderstandings. You're showing respect, building trust, and creating meaningful relationships. Picture yourself on your next international trip or even in a multicultural setting at home. You're shaking hands, making eye contact, smiling, and standing in ways that make the people around you feel understood, respected, and comfortable. You're not just speaking their language, you're speaking their unspoken language. This is the power of understanding how body language varies around the world. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share because you will learn tons of information in the next video.